过运动里有得。谢谢杜哥。
现在要几个？哦呀，这种
Is it visible?
Oh, is it visible from your side?
And now, yes, sir. Now, yes, it is visible.
Yeah, actually, I have uploaded one PPT.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Yeah.
So I welcome a very renowned and highly respected Professor of Economics from this region, and Professor Bijoykumar Singh. And in fact, he doesn't require any introduction, especially to the academics of economics. And he is a very senior professor and well-known professor from Northeast region. He has been associated with our university in different capacities as a member of different boards, and also as a member of selection committees, and also as a nominee of visitor. So he has been associated with our university, and he has published a number of research papers and books and reference textbooks as well as reference books in the field of economics. And we are very much privileged and honored to have you, sir, on this platform. And we have around 40 participants from different parts of the country, and they belong to the disciplines of commerce, economics, and management. And the topic chosen by you is very much relevant to every one of us, not only in Northeast region and across the globe, in fact. So with this very brief introduction, I welcome you to deliver your lecture. And my colleague, Professor Bhartendu Singh, is there, and he will act as a moderator throughout the session, sir.
Well, thank you, Professor Jyoti Kumar and Dr. Bhartendu Singh. I will be, as you know, talking on sustainable development goals and Northeastern region. Why I have chosen this Northeastern region is not only because actually we belong to this particular region, but also because this also gives us some idea on how to localize the sustainable development goals. As a matter of fact, the exercise undertaken by the NITI Aayog, trying to localize the sustainable development goals in the context of Northeastern region, will be actually a forerunner for many other exercises in other regions of the country, because India is a highly diverse country, and these sustainable development goals, which have been developed in the international context, may not be very appropriate to describe every situation. Now, let me come back to this general theme of this today. Yeah, this is actually the very popular icons. I mean, if you see these things, I mean, anyone should be able to realize the nature of the sustainable development goals. We have these 17 goals, and of course, these goals have many other indicators. Together, we intend to have around 169 indicators, and we try to develop what we call a sustainable development goal index as well. But let me give you some actually the details, about these goals. You see, in the beginning, or rather, when we, particularly after the Second World War, when we started, talking about development, all these things, there was a feeling that economic development was actually unidimensional concept. That means we try to look at economic development by looking at only at the changes in the per capita income or GNP. And gradually we realized that development is a very, very complex affair, and it cannot be measured by a single actually measure. And that led to the developments of various other indicators trying to expand the scope of the measure of development. And now we have the Human Development Index also, which is basically about a three component index. But now we realize that even that is not sufficient, And we also realize that development cannot be attained by the efforts of a single country or single state. It has to be a joint exercise, and we have to join hands, and we have to tackle this in different dimensions, and that led to what you call the Millennium Development Goals. The Millennium Development Goals were actually in operation from 2000 AD to 2015 AD. That had only basically 8 dimensions, but that was a big step in actually in our efforts to work together to realize economic development. And after the end of the Millennium Development Goals, of course, in the 15 years period, some goals were attained and some goals were not attained. That is the hard fact of life. And but the efforts for sustaining that development also took up in a very, very big way. We realized that it is not really essential to have growth. Growth that has to be sustained over time. If we have growth which fails to get sustained, that really doesn't make the story complete. So we would like to have a sustained type of thing, and it is in that context that we actually the international community came together again in 2015 actually to announce the Sustainable Development Goals. Now this time we have 17 Sustainable Development Goals. In other words, the concept of development, not only development, but we also try to introduce the idea of sustainability also. That is, we believe that there should be growth, and that growth also should be sustainable. So that's why we started talking in terms of 17 dimensions. So basically, if you go through the goals that have been, they are fairly popular now. 17 goals are fairly popular goals. You will realize that we no longer consider development as a problem of a single country or single state. It has some universal connotations, and it can be realized only when we incorporate those universality. So the General Assembly resolution of 70/1, transforming our worlds, the 2030 agenda for sustainable development. Now that was a very, very ambitious and universal development agenda, and they have become known as the Sustainable Development Goals. And I must say, these were very bold steps to end poverty in all its dimensions by 2030 through an unprecedented consultative process involving national governments and millions of citizens. I must say that in the beginning, planning used to be basically a top-down approach. In other words, only the experts would be writing the plans, would be actually spelling out what to do and what not to do. And there was a little scope for incorporating the experience of the ground. So planning from the bottom, that actually became a keyword in the last, say, 20, 30 years. And this time, when the international community prepared the Sustainable Development Goals, through that, actually, UN General Assembly resolution, lots of groundwork had been covered, and the opinions of millions of citizens across the world were also taken. So that actually marked a big step towards the realization of universal approaches, and these are actually the sustainable the SDGs. I will not actually read all of them, but the most important of these goals is the first one, the end of poverty in all its forms everywhere. Poverty actually has many other implications also in terms of the access or ability of the individuals, the citizens, to avail of the opportunities generated by the development process. So now we have these 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and as I said, this is in fact a major step towards realizing development by international cooperation. Because there are many items like climate change, where it doesn't make really sense to work alone on that account. What happens to your neighboring countries, what happens to that region, these are all equally important. So these are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Of course, some of the goals are so novel, so new, that we don't have even appropriate data, and therefore when we try to calculate index numbers, etc., and some of the goals are still outside our consideration, for the simple reason that we don't have the data. Now, in the case of India also, in 2015, we adopted the Sustainable Development Goals, and the Prime Minister, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, also announced our commitment to everything to realize these goals, and to top it. By that time, in the planning, also, we had a new institution called the Niti Aayog in place of the earlier institution known as the Planning Commission. Now, Niti Aayog started asking all the state governments to develop what you call the vision documents, Vision 2030. So all the state governments. Now we have actually by this time, you must remember that we are no longer in the 5-year plans. We have given up the 5-year plan this thing, but we are actually taking a longer time perspective, 15 years, that is from 2015 to 2030. So we were, all the states, we are asked to prepare the vision documents for 2030, you know. And of course, we want to launch into the sustainable and resilient part, leaving no one behind. You know. Now, the Sustainable Development Goals framework, as I said, addresses the key concerns of humanity, and you have 17 goals, no doubt, but you have 169 interlinked targets, you know, that reflect the interrelated nature of social, economic, and ecological well-being. You know. Now, many of the targets may also contribute to several goals. What I mean to say is that it is not that a target is operational only in one goal. You know, we will find many targets which are reflected in other goals also. You know, so that is the interrelatedness of the different goals, and some of them may even conflict, you know, but not all targets are explicit, and some of them may not be relevant for us. You know. Then we will come to know when we come to the calculation or estimation phases. Now, these goals will be the guiding principles of the Vision 2030 of all the states and the union territories of the country. And now we realize that a nation can become great only when every sub-national unit is performing and realizing its potential. You know. If the northern region also lags behind, then India will not be able to achieve its targets. You know. Now, India not achieving its target is very important, is very significant, because India has a huge population. If India fails in realizing the Sustainable Development Goals, and when you take the actually performance of the world together, you'll find that we have not been able to achieve much because India has not done it. So India should perform very well, and that means each of the sub-national units in the case of states, these states should develop properly, and it is in this spirit that the state vision documents have been developed, and we actually an environment has been created, you know, everywhere, and actually that reflects, I mean, the continuation of the nation building process in the real sense. You know. Now, as you see, when we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, you know, we are talking about Sustainable Development Goals because we are saying that if we realize the Sustainable Development Goals, if we attain the Sustainable Development Goals, then we would be in a position to attain a certain, you know, state of affairs, you know, and the end result will be something that will be very, very, you know, desirable. And so to make these Sustainable Development Goals acceptable, actually the Niti Aayog also has actually virtually, persuaded the state governments also to come up with the vision documents. And at this point, I would like to just share that in the case of my state, Manipur, we also, had opportunity of preparing the vision document 2030, which we had published in 2019. 2019, it was basically it took nearly 2.5 years to complete the details of that vision document, and that was published by our planning department. And let me just give you the uh, the Manipur vision. This is a vision, and so what we are trying to say here is that by 2030, every citizen in the state will be in a position to enjoy life. The people will enjoy all-round peace and prosperity. Peace encourages various ethnic groups in the state to live in harmony and work together for the collective interests of the state. The hill-valley divide will no longer be there. There will be food security for everyone. No one will suffer from malnutrition and hunger. Those who would like to have work will find jobs, remunerative and commensurate with their skills. Power would be available 24/7 everywhere. Everyone will get opportunity for utilizing his talents for his own benefits and the benefits of society as a result of the relentless pursuit of the Aegis policy. Actually, this is, I'm just giving you the type of vision that every state has, and the other states in the northern region like Sikkim, then Mizoram, they also have developed their own visions. And what I would like to say is that, why we need this vision? We need this vision to actually to tell our people that if we attain the sustainable development goals, then we will be able to reach this type of society. So that makes the goals more acceptable. So that is why we have developed visions, and it is not necessary that the visions of the old states be the same. We have our own priorities, and those priorities are actually emerging from our field works. We also did survey work in many districts in the state, and on the basis of the opinion of the people, how they rank the different goals, we developed the vision document for the state. But the idea is that we wanted to, or rather, actually the Niti Aayog wanted every state to give a concrete vision for 2030, so that the sustainable development goals and its related policy measures become acceptable to the public. Now, now we have the Niti Aayog. This is, as I have already said, Niti Aayog has actually demanded that these vision documents will be sort of 15-year, plan, actually, and in line with the global trends of economic growth. And in fact, even though the SDGs started from 2015 onwards, but it took time. It took time to make concrete, actually, to make concrete vision documents, because as I said, there were 169 indicators, and even in India also, we had lots of problem in finding out the appropriate, the data for those indicators, and as I mentioned, we took around 2.5 years to develop the vision document for the state of Manipur. That long period was mostly due to our search for the appropriate data. And when we started work for the vision document in 2017, actually not much was known about the actual indicators to be used for the database. In fact, that actually became more concrete only around 2019. Now let me, now these SDGs, let me say the SDGs provide an exhaustive list of desirable goals and whose realization is necessary for making our lives better in a sustainable manner. As I said, we want to have a better lives, but that should be in a sustainable manner. And we have actually sustainable development is not a new concept. For many years we have been actually quite familiar with that, but we had never taken that seriously. And in the current context, when you are talking about the sustainable development goals, every measure that we are going to take, they are going to be assessed on the this criteria of sustainability. If you want to do anything, you will be asked, is that sustainable? If you say yes, then we can proceed, and if you say no, then actually we have to do some rating again. And of course, I must say that this is not even the end. Development is a very, very complex process, and we actually have not been able, despite these 17 goals, many other things, and there is also a criticism that there is no clear-cut articulation of what Sen called the key freedoms, including economic opportunities, political liberty, social empowerment, dignity, and basic conditions such as the good health and education. And in fact, as I told you, the concept of development, the scope of development has been expanding year after year as we develop, more better ways of looking at different social things. So, as I said, we have some still with this concept of development. We are having problems, and as I said, there are many trade-offs among the targets also. Say, for example, an increase in agricultural land use to health and hunger, can lead to biodiversity loss and pollution of water resources, and the downstream effects on the resources. So, number of targets are not quantified at the subnational level, particularly when we are trying to look at the state level, basically subnational level. We find that many of the indicators are yet to be properly developed. Now, let me skip some of these things here. When we talk about change, we have to understand the comparative statistics. Now we have the SDG framework, and how the various states are actually performing. That also has to be examined. And it is in this context that the Niti Aayog, as I told you, it was only in 2019. It was only in 2019 that Niti Aayog came up with the Sustainable Development Goal India Index version 1. Now that was a big step towards making the sustainable development goals, related policies, very concrete, because most of the time, our policymakers, not only at the central level, but at the state level also, we were highly handicapped by the non-availability of appropriate data for all these indicators. In the first place, we even didn't know what would be the proper indicators. Forget about getting the data. Now, once we come to some agreements about the indicators, then the question of getting the appropriate data rose. And there also we were highly handicapped. But then, with lots of efforts, Niti Aayog in 2019 came up with the Sustainable Development Goal India Index version 1, and I must mention that so far the Niti Aayog has produced three versions, three versions of this index, and each of them is getting better. But the problem of these index numbers becoming better and better is that they are no longer very strictly comparable, because every time we are actually introducing new indicators and new measures, and leaving the earlier measures, the earlier indicators. So better and better index numbers, does not necessarily mean that we don't have any other problem. This problem of comparability is very much there, because as I must say, the constituents of the indicators in the first version of the index are very different from the constituents of the indicators in the third version of the index. But nevertheless, that this actually is a major steps towards the improvement of this exercise, and yeah. So this idea of SDGs, as I told you, had to percolate to all levels of policy making. As I said, every policies were actually being examined on this criteria of sustainability. So the Sustainable Development Goal Index version 1, which was published in 2018 December, used only about 62 indicators covering 39 targets across 13 sustainable development goals. Even though there were 17 sustainable development goals, we could use only 13 of them. So when we prepared the vision document for Manipur also in 2019, we didn't have the opportunity of utilizing all the sustainable development goals. We worked basically with these sustainable development goals, for which appropriate data were available from the Niti Aayog. Some goals were not considered, and even in sustainable development goal also, this in version 2 also, we have around 100 indicators and 54 targets across 16 goals. As I told you, we have 17 goals, but again, we are not using all the goals, particularly at the state level. Goal number 17. Goal number 17 is about international collaboration. We really don't have, that level of disaggregated data on the, this. So basically, goal number 17 most of the time is out. And still now we are not using that. And there's another another goal number 14, deals with about the marine resources, about the ocean, the coastal area and all that, Now, since only about nine states in India, share those concerns, it is not actually used for the other states. So, for example, for the northern states, marine resources really do not make any sense. We are not associated with that type of resource. So, uh, still, we are not able to use all the goals, all the indicators. But as I said, the sustainable development goals, we have three persons at the actually, and these persons enable us to rank the various states. Now, so this is now coming to the northern region. Now we have these sustainable development goals in the index numbers. You have from the very beginning, when the first version was published, you have Arunachal Pradesh 51, Assam 49, Manipur 59, then 50, Mizoram is 59, and in fact, as you see, Mizoram and Manipur top among the northern states in terms of Sustainable Development Goals Index in the first issue. Then in the second issue, Mizoram, you might be more interested in that. Mizoram actually declined. We have a decline of 56 to 56. Manipur slightly increased by 1. But again, when you come to the third person, now you see, now Mizoram is around 68. It has bounced back, but the highest is Sikkim. Sikkim has done the best, in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the development experience of the northern regions, Sikkim is an outlier in many ways. Many of the things that we find so common and in the northern states are very, very different in Sikkim, and that also explains why Sikkim is also growing very, very fast, and one of the fastest growing states in the country with a very high per capita income. Very, very, as I said, Sikkim is an outlier to the northern among the northern states in many ways, and in fact, so Sikkim was the fastest growing state in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, and Manipur happens to be the slowest growing state. So Manipur could grow by only about 8.47% from the first person to the third person, whereas Sikkim grew by nearly 22.41%. And yeah, so this is actually the performance of some of the states, and that I have already explained. And but as I said, this is actually a very, very interesting area because we have around 169 indicators to be incorporated, but we have been able to define only about 115 indicators. So there is lots of scope for the scholars, for social scientists to study and make some very valuable contribution in this regard. Then this is actually about the localization of the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, you see, India is a very, very diverse country. You have differences in so many things in India, and if we think that we can actually implement a uniform policy for the country as a whole, that will not be very appropriate. So Niti Aayog also started thinking in terms of localizing the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, localization of the Sustainable Development Goals is actually, trying to make the indicators, the goals, as realistic as possible at the ground level. So, for example, if we are confronted with a number of targets, a particular target which doesn't make any sense to a particular to my state, now that will be very, very inappropriate. Say, for example, in the first index, in the first version of the index, one of the indicators was the change in the number of elephant population in the state. One of the indicators was that. But as I said, I mean, the change in elephant population may be a meaningful indicator for some states, but not all the states. So there was a need to localize the index in the Sustainable Development goals, as well as indicators. So that's why Niti Aayog actually started with the not NER exercise. And in fact, Niti Aayog came up with district level indicators. But of course, there are certain again actually what must say limitations to that, but nevertheless that is actually a major step, and there's a recognition that NER has a unique regional context with significant commonalities which can be taken advantage of to build greater momentum in the implementation of the SDGs in each of the states. Now, let me just add a few words here. NER actually in the last few years we have been actually very, very actually euphoric because of the Egg East policy. Egg East policy became more or less the actually the keyword from 2014-15 on, around that onwards, and but one thing that stands out now is when we were actually re-examining the impact of Egg East policy, not only on various indicators, but even on this the realization of the Sustainable Development Goals. Now, the government of India has again started talking about another initiative. There is the sometimes it is called Quad initiative, and sometimes it is called Indo-Pacific framework. So sometimes now we feel that in the actually in the rush for going for that perspective, there is the Indo-Pacific or the Quad framework we should not lose track of the initiatives taken up, as part of the Egg East policy. Now, coming to the NER SDG index, this is the first of its kind in the country. It is focused on a region and ranks the districts on the Sustainable Development Goals. So we have actually almost all the districts in the northern region, and they have been ranked. They have been ranked. Of course, not all the districts have been included because we are having new districts, and many of the new districts do not have the appropriate data. So we are actually trying to get we are actually including only those states and districts, where we have the appropriate data. So the NER Sustainable Development Goal Index is the first of its kind. And as I said, this will be forerunner of many more exercises dealing with other regions of the country. Because we realize that sustainable development goals, the goals are fine, but the indicators, were basically finalized on a at the international level, and obviously the ground level realities may not match with the international perspectives. So therefore, in order to ensure that we have actual, real sustainable development, we have to take this localization exercise very, very seriously. And so in this case, as I told you, this is not a very, very comprehensive type of thing. And whenever we try to construct any index, the availability of data always, becomes a constraint, in many things, So we are actually in this district level data, we are using only 84 indicators, and 50 SDG targets, So there are many things, many indicators that have to be totally, redefined from the perspective of the state, and even though actually the district SDGs index, follows the same methodology as the SDG India index, but still we are not actually in a position to make it as comprehensive as the state level indicators. But nevertheless, this is what I say, something is better than nothing. Instead of saying that we don't have anything, we have some data, some measures on the basis of which we try to understand the process of change. And I must say that all the 8 northern states have already prepared this state indicator framework and are in the process of finalizing their respective district indicator frameworks. Now, actually, in most of the states, including Manipur, this is left to the the planning department of the various states, and of course in Assam, I mean we have I think we have different departments dealing with this, and so work in this area in the sustainable development goals have been quite hectic, and every state has been trying their best to come up with the documentally the requirements, particularly the data, and then of course, and not only that, they have been trying to actually suggest state level indicators also. In the case of Manipur also, the planning department came up with a number of very, very meaningful indicators which have been missed out at the national level, but which are very, very important in our case. Importance is, it is important, no doubt, but we have the data also there, and many of the, the problem with many of the index numbers is that we don't have the appropriate data. Now, the SDG NER index, even though it's very, very useful, it's going to be a very useful thing, there are certain limitations. As I said, this is a limited comparability to SDG India index. India has a much more, at the state level, this is a bigger thing, and at the district level, we don't have the measures as comprehensive as possible. So that comparability is not there, and another problem is the national indicator framework could not be included due to the unavailability of data at the level of districts. Then another thing about the sustainable development. This is actually a point of criticism for even at the national state level, because these indicators and the data they don't include information from the non-government sources. All the information data that we use are coming from the government sources. And why we are doing it? Because it's for the sake of data comparability and uniformity. Because at the NGO or civil society level, data may not be data may be collected, no doubt, but the comparability and uniformity of data may not be there. So in trying to talk about the Sustainable Development Goals Index and achievements, we always say that it is not actually, we don't have that advantage, because private sector, as you know, is a very, very active actually player also, and the contribution of the private sector is totally out of this index number. It is so. In other words, it gives an incomplete picture of the situation. So that's why we said that we should actually try to utilize all types of information, including the information generated by these NGOs, and civil society organizations, by realizing their contribution, which we are still unable to do. Yeah. So these are basically what I wanted to share with you. So basically, what I have been trying to tell in this meeting is that sustainable development goal, it is actually being taken up in a very, very concerted manner, and there are lots of organizations are involved in trying to realize the various goals, indicators, and targets. And we are also trying to make it as realistic as possible by trying to localize the sustainable development goals, because we have come to realize that planning need not always be from the top, So the bottom up approach also has to be there, and it is in that context that the sustainable development goals, which have been developed, which have come into existence, after rounds of discussions involving millions of stakeholders, have been put forward, and it is in fact actually something that we can be proud of, because in the government of India also from the very beginning actually embraced these sustainable development goals, saying that sustainable development goals in fact are actually what our ancient texts have been talking about, to make everyone happy, so by including everyone in the development process, So in the case of India, at the policy makers level also, there is a full acceptance of the sustainable development goals perspectives to make our lives better, and every step is being initiated, taken by the NITI Aayog also, to make it easier for the governments to realize these goals. You see, at one phase, even our planning processes used to be highly, centralized. It used to be dictated, but now, we have to say what we want. And in fact, the vision document we had prepared for Manipur state also. Uh, we tried to start a 15-year, actually part for realizing those goals. But the only difficulty, is that after when we thought we would be going full steam for realizing the sustainable development goals, this pandemic set in, and even though our vision documents and then the associated measures should have been taken up by 2019 onwards, because we thought from 2020 to 2030 will be the decade of action. You see, from 2015 to 2020, we thought it would be the time for preparation, because we now have, instead of 8 goals, we have 17 goals to take care of. So we had to do lots of homework to make these measures meaningful. So, but unfortunately, by the time we thought we would be in a position to launch the decade of action, we were actually just actually thrown off the track by the pandemic, and as a matter of fact, now that the pandemic is almost over, but we realize that new normals have been set in many sectors, and so many of the recommendations of the pre-COVID, pre-pandemic period, because our exercises were basically pre-pandemic exercises. So those exercises may need some relook. We may not be able to actually implement them as they are, because new normals have been set, and once we come back to the this thing to the actually the process of planning again at the end of this pandemic, then actually we may have to recast our those visions, and even maybe but as I said, sustainable development goals at the end of the sustainable development goals into 2030. We should not imagine that all our problems would have been solved by that time, because new problems keep on emerging after we solve the old problems. This is the way of life. So even after 2030 also, we will have another round of exercises. But as I said, we are beginning to understand the nature of economic development better and better. That we are beginning to understand the interlinkages across the countries. When we try to attain these goals. No longer we are going to pursue these goals on our own. We have to take into account what is being done by our neighboring countries, what is being done by our neighboring states in many of the fields. That in fact is a big lesson. And of course, pandemic also actually in a very short period of time actually taught us a lot. And really force the stakeholders also to have a relook, to have a rethink of their positions in the development process. And that is why, you know, this phrase of reimagination has become very, very popular, you know. Now we have to reimagine, and that covers on even the aegis policy, you know. We say, I mean, we have to reimagine the policy measures that are appropriate for aegis policy in this post-pandemic world, you know. So, as a matter of fact, the world is actually becoming more and more united in its fight against poverty, because we realize that poverty is not merely a one-dimensional thing. Poverty has implication for all other things in the in our life, you know. So poverty has become removal of poverty has become the #1 target of the international community, and we are actually learning to work together in a more united manner, more meaningful manner. And the pandemic also provided us some forced lessons in doing in how to get the things done, you know. And like even this, you know, these webinar, these things, the online exercises, this actually was coming, but it would have taken lots of time to become as popular as it is today, you know, had it not been for the pandemic, you know. Because the faculties, the scholars, they actually had to learn these things, and it was not possible to force them to learn at a particular speed, you know. But the pandemic actually forced them to learn, to pick up these techniques, the new technologies, you know. So in a way, I must say that the Sustainable Development Goals, in spite of their greatness, in spite of their, you know, universality, should not be expected to solve all our problems. Just like Sustainable Development Goals came after the Millennium Development Goals, even though it took 15 years. Another, you know, set of goals will definitely come after 2030 also, because the development, the process of development actually keeps on throwing up new challenges now and then, you know, and we have to tackle those challenges, you know. And each of the generations, they have the responsibility to tackle these challenges, and so that's why we have to look at a very, very positive manner on these goals and their realizations, and in fact, we have to remember that we are learning in many ways, you know, and so no one is perfect actually. So if we say that, if we find that some of the very, very the indicators have been missed out, now that again should be brought back to the mainstream, and that is exactly what is being done by the process of localization of the Sustainable Development Goals by the Niti Aayog. And as I said, it has been very, very successfully done in the context of Northeastern region as a first initiative, and this will become a forerunner for the other regions of the country as well. You know, I think I will stop at this step, and if our participants have some questions, then we can share those things. So, Martendu, you can.
Yes, sir. I will be taking a question answer now, sir. It was a very nice presentation. Although it's not a new thing, SDGs are here for long, but still I feel, sir, general awareness is quite less for SDGs. How to make it more popular, as these goals are not mandatory kind of goals. These are voluntarily we have to work for that. not as a unit, a single unit, single person also I should contribute towards this. But that kind of awareness is missing. We know 17 goals are there, but what are the inside? What are the things, and how I individually can contribute for this? How to make it known to everyone, sir?
Yeah. Actually, you have raised a very pertinent question, because that is what we have been talking about from the very beginning. When we started our work in 2017, trying to develop the vision document on the basis of the Sustainable Development Goals, it was actually Sustainable Development Goals practically unheard of in the various districts, and even now also, actually this is the, I'm not very sure about the other states, but in my state, the planning department actually handles this, but it handles this as one of the many responsibilities of their department. So we keep on telling them that there should be a separate section for the SDGs, trying to contribute in a very meaningful way. Not only awareness among the stakeholders, that is very important. But again, when it comes to the issue of localization of the SDGs, actually the intellectuals or the research scholars in the region also, they also have to be reactivated, have to be brought in this mainstream, trying to understand this better, So basically, this aspect has not been properly taken care of, and but we believe that this is a very serious thing. Not to be taken as easily as other things, because our planning exercise and the 5-year plan, 15-year plan, everything is becoming dependent on it, So that needs some more seriousness on the part of the governments, I think only Assam government is quite serious, and maybe Sikkim government, Sikkim also is quite serious. But the other states, even about your Mizoram, I'm not very sure, because the vision document I had seen about Mizoram was published much before the SDGs came. That came almost after the publication of the NER Vision 2020, by almost the same team of experts. National Institute of Public Finance and Policy was there, and I really don't know whether that vision document of Mizoram has been replaced by a vision document reflecting the SDGs, because at that time when they came up with that vision document, actually SDGs were not very is not as popular as they are now. I think this is okay. This is what I have to say.
Sir, then sir, the target targets are to 2030. We are nearly 8 years to go to achieve these things. Sir, what is your estimate? How much we are going to achieve?
You see, we thought if we work very seriously for that decade, 2020 to 2030, that we had actually called the decade of action. We thought we would be able to achieve a lot, but now that after the pandemic, we really don't know where the things are. They are really now. They have to be again re-examined. Actually, so but that type of exercise is yet to become visible. Because everyone knows that there is hardly any sector unaffected by the pandemic. So that has to be properly examined, and then we will be able to say. But I personally feel that in this 8 years' time, we won't be able to achieve much of our targets. And so this exercise, as I say, will again have to be extended further with new development challenges, not only the old ones, but even new challenges may be coming up, and I am really confused. I think that this our experience of the pandemic will definitely throw up some more goals, some more goals to be achieved for the sustainable development goals. So that way, uh, uh, some revisions in the goals will be there, but to be very precise, I don't think we will be able to achieve much in this 8 years' time.
Sir, as you are telling that these goals have been negatively affected by the pandemic last 2 years, hunger or poverty, whatever we call, it must have negatively hampered, and that must have pushed us back. We have to learn a lot from these situations, and then we have to improve it to cope up with the loss what we have made in the last 2 years. So, sir, we don't have any additional questions now. So, if any participant is having any question, just put it in the chat box, or otherwise we'll conclude the session. So, no questions, sir. So, we'll conclude the session here. Thanks a lot, sir. You have taken your time 1.5 hours from your busy schedule. Although you are very much busy in different activities, you are very actively. You are already director of a Center of Study of Social Exclusion and Inclusive Policy, and you had been head of the department twice. You had been dean of the school, then IQSC director. Then, as Professor Jyotikumar also told, you were member of our nominee for Vice Chancellor. Visitors nominee for our selection committees. Long associations we are having, and we hope we'll continue this association in future also. Thanks a lot, sir, for joining. And on behalf of all the participants here, and on behalf of the Department of Commerce, and on behalf of HRDC of Mizoram University, I say thanks to you for joining us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Yes. So, dear participants, let us call it a day today. We had 4 very interesting sessions today with 4 renowned speakers. In the morning, we talked about IPOs, initial public offers, and the speaker was Professor S.S. Saha from Kolkata University. And second session today was Professor R. Shivarama Prasad from Acharya Nagarjuna University. He talked about emerging issues in economics, commerce, and management. Then we had a talk on theory building in social science research by Professor Amit Kumar Singh from Baba Saheb Ambedkar University. And just now we finished the session with Professor E. Bijoykumar Singh, a senior professor in economics in Mizoram University, Manipur University, and he talked about SDG goals for NER. So with this, our session is over, and tomorrow again we will assemble at 10 o'clock, 10 morning, and we'll be talking about. Tomorrow we'll be having 4 more sessions. It will be group research and interdisciplinary research, and the speaker will be Professor Y. Srinivasalu from Pondicherry University. And the second session we'll be having from on personal finance